Anger and aggression are sometimes described as antisocial emotions, but they are, in fact, intensely social. If you were to plot on a city map all instances of shouting, insulting, screaming, door slamming, and china throwing, they would overwhelmingly be concentrated in family residences, not in the streets or sports stadiums or schoolyards or shopping malls, but inside our homes. Whenever the police try to solve a homicide, their first suspects are family members, lovers, and close colleagues. Since aggression serves to negotiate the terms of social relationships, this is where it typically occurs. At the same time, close social relationships are also the most resilient. The reason human families manage to stick together is that reconciliation, too, is most common in these relationships. Spouses, siblings, and friends constantly go through cycles of conflict and reconciliation, repeated over and over to negotiate their relationships. You show anger to make your point, and then bury the hatchet with the help of a kiss and some cuddling. Other primates do the same thing to protect their bonds against the eroding effects of conflict. They kiss and groom after fights. For them, too, reconciliation is easiest with the ones they are closest to. There is one domain, though, in which aggression is common and reconciliation rare, making for decidedly different outcomes. This domain received enormous attention in 1966 when Konrad Lorenz argued in his treatise on aggression that we have an aggressive drive that may lead to warfare. Hence, that war is part of human biology. Many found this view hard to swallow, coming from an Austrian who had served in the German army during World War II. The heated and often ideological debate that ensued continues to this date. According to some, it's our destiny to wage war forever, whereas others view war as a cultural phenomenon tied to present conditions. But modern warfare is undeniably several steps removed from our species' aggressive instincts. It's really not the same thing. The decision to go to war is typically made by older men in a capital based on politics, economics, and egos, while younger men are told to do the dirty work. When I look at the marching army, therefore, I don't necessarily see the aggressive instinct at work. I rather see the herd instinct. Thousands of men and women in lockstep, willing to obey orders. I can't imagine that Napoleon's soldiers froze to death in Russia in an angry mood. Nor have I ever heard American Vietnam veterans say that they went over there with rage in their hearts. But alas, the incredibly complex issue of human warfare is still often reduced to that of an aggressive instinct. In recent history, we've seen so much war-related carnage that it is natural to think warfare is written into our DNA. British Prime Minister Winston Churchill certainly thought so, writing, quote, "The story of the human race is war. Except for brief and precarious interludes, there has never been peace in the world. And before history began, murderous strife was universal and unending," unquote. I don't sound quite like Winston. Unfortunately, or perhaps fortunately, there exists little evidence for Churchill's warmongering state of nature. Whereas archaeological signs of individual murder go back several 100,000 years, similar evidence for warfare, such as graveyards and weapons embedded in a mass of skeletons, is entirely lacking from before 12,000 years ago. We have zero evidence for warfare before the agricultural revolution, when survival began to depend on settlements and livestock. Even the walls of Jericho, considered one of the first signs of warfare and famous for having come tumbling down in the Old Testament, may have served mainly as protection against mud flows. Long before these biblical times, our ancestors lived on a thinly populated planet with only a couple of million people, all told. Studies of mitochondrial DNA suggest that about 70,000 years ago, our lineage was at the edge of extinction, living in scattered small bands. Well, these are hardly the conditions that promote continuous warfare. Nomadic hunter-gatherers, often proposed as models of how our ancestors must have lived, these frequently engage in amicable trade, intermarriage, game exchange, and communal feasts. In one of the most striking analyses of recent years, the friendships of the Hadza in Tanzania were mapped, showing that they enjoy a vast network of contacts well beyond their own group and kin. Even if war was always an option for our ancestors, they probably followed the pattern of the Hadza, which is the opposite of what Churchill surmised. Most likely, long periods of peace and harmony were broken by brief interludes of violent confrontation. From the beginning, apes have figured prominently in this debate. At first, they were seen as the poster children of our peaceful ancestry because all they were thought to do was travel from tree to tree in search of food, like a frugivorous version of Rousseau's Noble Savage. In the 1970s, however, came the first shocking field reports of chimpanzees killing each other, hunting monkeys, eating meat, and so on. And even though killing of other species was never the issue, the chimpanzee observations were used to make the point that our ancestors must have been murderous monsters. Incidents of chimps killing their leaders, such as described earlier, are exceptional compared to what they do to members of other groups for whom they reserve their most brutal violence. As a result, ape behavior moved from serving as an argument against Lorenz's position to becoming Exhibit A in its favor. British primate expert Richard Wrangham concluded in his book Demonic Males, Apes and the Origins of Human Violence. He concluded that chimpanzee-like violence preceded and paved the way for human war, making modern humans the dazed survivors of a continuous 5 million year habit of lethal aggression. Wrangham returned us squarely to the idea that warfare is innate, even though he did his best to depict it as a flexible trait, an option subject to our choice. But how flexible can a trait be that has given us, quote, continuous warfare throughout human history and prehistory? Although this claim sounds factual, it lacks archaeological backing. We really don't know if war goes back all the way to our earliest ancestors. And it's also unclear that these ancestors looked anything like chimpanzees. Due to poor fossilization in the rainforest, the shape and size of our forebears is unknown. That they were apes is an excellent guess, but not only has our own lineage changed since then, so have all the other apes. None of this species around today tell us where we came from. For all we know, the last common ancestor of humans and apes, popularly known as the missing link, may have resembled a chimp, a bonobo, a gorilla, an orangutan, or something else. Some experts bet on the gibbon, which is an ape too, but not one of the great knuckle-walking ones. Gibbons are brachiators who swing through the trees hanging by their arms. Of these possibilities, the bonobo is perhaps the most intriguing, given its peaceful predisposition. Although there are lots of confirmed reports of one chimpanzee killing another, thus far there are none for the bonobo doing the same, either in captivity or in the wild. On the contrary, field workers describe nonviolent mingling between bonobo communities. The apes call each other when they meet and may show initial aggression, but they soon walk up to each other, have sex, and groom. Very cute. Mothers let their offspring venture out to play with juveniles of the other groups, or even with adult males. Bonobos probably have social networks that stretch well beyond their residential communities. Members of different groups seem glad to see each other and act totally relaxed. A recent field report even documented the sharing of meat across territorial borders. Well, this would be unimaginable in chimpanzees, who only know various degrees of hostility. They never show the cordiality and trust that bonobo groups do, and during an intergroup encounter, every chimp mother will try to get as far away as she can because her youngest offspring is at grave risk. So this is the stark contrast between our two closest primate relatives. Chimpanzee communities in the forest engage in bloody battles, whereas bonobos enjoy happy picnics. At the Lola Ya Bonobo Sanctuary near Kinshasa in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, it was recently decided to merge two groups of bonobos that had lived separately, just to stimulate some social activity. Well, no one would dare do such a thing with chimpanzees, as the only possible outcome would be a bloodbath. The bonobos produced an orgy instead. Oh dear, I have to laugh. The bonobos produced an orgy instead. Because bonobos freely help strangers to reach a goal, researchers call them xenophilic. They're attracted to strangers, xenophilic, whereas they consider chimpanzees xenophobic, fearing or disliking strangers. The bonobo brain reflects these differences. Areas involved in the perception of another's distress, such as the amygdala and anterior insula, are enlarged in the bonobo compared to the chimpanzee. Bonobo brains also contain more developed pathways to control aggressive impulses. The bonobo may well have the most empathic brain of all hominids, including us. Interesting, you'd think, but science refuses to take bonobos seriously. They're simply too peaceful, too matriarchal, and too gentle to fit the popular storyline of human evolution, which turns on conquest, male dominance, hunting, and warfare. We have a, quote, man the hunter theory and a, quote, killer ape theory. We have the idea that intergroup competition made us cooperative, and the proposal that our brains grew so large because women liked smart men. There is no escape. Our theories about human evolution always turn around males and what makes them successful. While chimpanzees fit most of these scenarios, no one knows what to do with bonobos. Our hippie cousins, those are the bonobos, our hippie cousins are invariably hailed as delightful and then quickly marginalized. Charming species, but let's stick with the chimpanzee, is the general tone. In 2009, when my vision is not that good, it's in your new terminology, Ardipithecus ramidus. In 2009, a 4.4 million year old hominin fossil was described. Her dentition failed to fit the standard narrative. Artie, which they've called her, Artie's small canine teeth suggested a relatively pacific, I want to say it that way, pacific species. You'd think this would have been the perfect moment to turn to the bonobo, which is also peaceful and has reduced blunt teeth. Of all the apes, the bonobo looks most like Artie, down to its general body proportions, long legs, grasping feet, and even brain size. But instead of offering a new perspective, stressing humanity's gentle and empathic potential, along with that of one of its closest relatives, anthropologists gave us only hand-wringing about how atypical Artie was. How could we have had such a gentle ancestor? Presenting Artie as an anomaly and a mystery kept intact the prevailing macho storyline. Accordingly, humans in a state of nature, quote, if such a condition ever existed, wage continuous war. Our only hope is civilization, as Steven Pinker writes in The Better Angels of Our Nature, Why Violence Has Declined, in a 2011 book that favors chimpanzees as the best model to understand where we came from. Pinker offers cultural progress as the solution to all our problems. We need to bring our instincts under control. Otherwise, we'd act like chimps. This distinctly Freudian message, now remember, Sigmund Freud saw civilization as the tamer of our basic instincts. Let's see, this distinctly Freudian message is deeply ingrained in the West and remains immensely popular. In the meantime, however, cultural anthropologists and human rights organizations abhor the inevitable implication that pre-literate people live in chronic violence. This myth can be and has been used as an argument against these people's rights. Perhaps a handful of tribes behave this way, but critics have argued that only serious cherry picking from the anthropological record can support Pinker's blood-soaked view of human origins. Savages, quote, are not nearly as savage as is often assumed. I think that's a difficult paragraph somehow. The most puzzling part of the whole civilization to the rescue proposal is that whenever modern day explorers have encountered pre-literate people, the violent ones have invariably been the former. And this was true when the British discovered Australia, when the Pilgrims landed in New England, and when Christopher Columbus came to the New World. Even if the indigenous people greeted the foreign visitors with gifts and friendship, all the latter could do was massacre their hosts. Columbus encountered people who didn't even know what a sword was, only to marvel that with just 50 soldiers, he'd be able to crush them. Well, so much for civilization's edifying influence. My own views focus not on human history, but on the natural abilities of primates to dampen conflict. And most of the time, they are excellent at keeping the peace. I can't believe that we are still bowing to Freud and Lawrence, not to mention Hobbes, while debating our evolutionary background. The idea that we can achieve optimal sociality only by subduing human biology is really antiquated. It doesn't fit with what we know about hunter-gatherers and other primates or modern neuroscience. It also promotes a sequential view. First, we had human biology, then we got civilization. Whereas in reality, the two have always gone hand in hand. Civilization is not some outside force. It is us. It is us. No abiological humans ever existed, nor any acultural ones. And why do we always consider our biology in the bleakest possible light? Have we turned nature into the bad guy so that we can look at ourselves as the good guy? Social life is very much a part of our primate background, as are cooperation, bonding, and empathy. And this is because group living is our main survival strategy. Primates are made to be social, made to care about each other, made to get along. And the same applies to us. Civilization may do all sorts of great things for us, but it does so by co-opting natural abilities, not by inventing anything new. It works with what we have to offer, including an age-old capacity for peaceful coexistence. Artie is telling us something, and even if we don't agree about what she's saying, it's time for us to start discussing human evolution without always playing the drums of war in the background. True, on our bad days, we are as domineering and violent as chimps can be, but on our good days, we are as nice and sensitive as bonobos can be. This next section is called Female Power. Yay to female power. And you'll like this. Mama was the top ranking female in the Arnhem chimpanzee colony. Now, even though she didn't physically dominate any grown males, she was more powerful and influential than most. I have known other impressive female chimps who knew how to stand their ground, push males around, taking food out of their hands, nudging them out of a comfortable seat. And they were so pivotal to group life that everyone courted their political backing. But the true champions in this regard are not chimpanzees, but bonobos. In the wild, an alpha female bonobo will stride into a clearing, dragging a huge branch behind her, making a display that everyone else watches but avoids. It's not unusual for female bonobos to chase off males and lay claim to large fruits that they divvy up among themselves. Anodidium fruits weigh up to 22 pounds, and Treculia fruits weigh up to 66 pounds, nearly the weight of a grown bonobo. Once these colossal fruits drop to the ground, females invariably claim them and rarely see fit to share with begging males. Individual males may, may supplant individual females, especially younger ones, but collectively, the females dominate the males. Now, this is true not only in the wild, but also in every zoo that I have visited. Invariably, a female is in charge of the bonobo colony. The only exception occurs if a zoo has just one male and one female. Male bonobos are bigger and stronger and possess longer canine teeth than females. And in these cases, the male is boss. But as soon as the colony grows and the zoo adds a second female, male supremacy is over. The females will band together whenever he tries to intimidate one of them. Adding more males won't change much because, unlike chimpanzee males, which easily form coalitions, bonobo males aren't very cooperative. Naturally, bonobos have become popular among feminists, yes, who have honored them in book dedications, such as Alice Walker thanking life for their existence. Isn't that interesting? We know Alice. Whereas chimpanzees resolve sexual issues with power, bonobos resolve power issues with sex. And moreover, they have sex in all possible combinations, including members of the same sex. Scientists and journalists have pushed back, though, feeling that the bonobo is just too good to be true. Could this make love, not war species be a politically correct concoction? A made-up ape to satisfy the liberal left? One journalist traveled all the way to the Democratic Republic of the Congo in an attempt to prove that bonobos aren't nearly as pacific as they have been made out to be. All he came back with, however, was the story of a bonobo chasing a daikar. That's a little antelope. The little antelope escaped safely, but the journalist felt the need to treat his readers to a ghastly account of the way the ape might have killed and devoured it. None of this had much to do with the issue at hand, however, because predation is not aggression. Predation is driven by hunger, not competition. Scientists unfamiliar with the species have criticized those who dare call bonobos subordinate. Better to regard them as chivalrous, they said, because the weaker sex's clout obviously depends on the stronger sex's good-heartedness. Oh yeah, they're being so good, they let the girls have the ball. Furthermore, female dominance cannot be all that important since it's limited to food. Well, this was a baffling twist because if there's one yardstick that has been applied to every animal on the planet, it is that if individual A can chase B away from its food, A is called dominant. The bonobo pioneer Takayoshi Kano, the Japanese field worker who followed bonobos for 25 years in the swamp forest, noted that food is precisely what female dominance is all about. If this is what matters to them, then it should matter to the human observer too. Kano went on to point out that even if there is no food around, full-grown males react submissively to the mere approach of a top-ranking female. Collective female rule is especially surprising given that bonobo females are unrelated to each other. They are friends, not kin. At puberty, a female leaves the community in which she was born to join the neighbors, where she attaches herself to a senior female who takes her under her wing. She generally lacks relatives in the territory in which she takes up residence. I've called the resulting genarchy a secondary sisterhood. The females act with sisterly solidarity, based on common interest rather than kinship. In recent years, we have learned more about these networks thanks to a revival of research on wild bonobos, which for many years was disrupted by war. Field observations are extremely hard to conduct in one of the remotest forests in the world, but the Japanese scientists Nohoko Tokiyama managed to collect crucial information on how the females work together. And I apologize to Sumi for my mispronunciation if it was. Most of the time, they do so in response to male harassment. Whereas chimpanzee females endure abuse and the occasional killing of their infants, bonobo females suffer none of these problems. High-ranking older females support younger ones as soon as they are in trouble with any males. Female bonobos have a relatively carefree existence, thanks to this camaraderie, which keeps male violence in check. We know much less about the dominance relationships among the females themselves. They usually have a clear alpha, who in the bonobo's case is also the general alpha individual dominant over everyone. But competition over this position is less intense than that among males in chimpanzee society. And that's because for females, there's always less at stake than for males. In evolutionary terms, all that matters is who passes on their genes. Males can do better in this regard than any female because a top position allows them to impregnate a multitude of females. For females, the evolutionary game is radically different. Regardless of rank and number of males, a female still gets only one infant at a time. And because of the way reproduction works, male status carries a bigger premium. Bonobo females, however, do the next best thing. They are fierce supporters of their sons in the male hierarchy. The worst fights in bonobo society occur when females get involved in their sons' status struggles. Male bonobos vie for positions on their mother's apron strings, which allows high-ranking mothers to increase their number of grandchildren. Now, here's an example. Take the wild alpha female Kame with no fewer than 3 grown sons, the oldest of whom was the alpha male. When old age began to weaken Kame, she became hesitant to defend her children. The son of the beta female must have sensed this because he began to challenge Kame's sons. His own mother backed him up and was not afraid to attack the top male on his behalf. The frictions escalated to the point that the two mothers exchanged blows, rolling over the ground. The beta female held Kame down. Kame never recovered from this humiliation, and soon her sons dropped to mid-ranking positions. After Kame's death, they became peripheral, and the son of the new alpha female took the top spot. The closest human parallel is the fierce competition and intrigues among slave concubines in the Ottoman imperial harem, some of whom gained a status equal to the Sultan's wives. These women groomed their sons to become the next sultan. Upon ascension to the throne, the winner would inevitably order the killing of all his brothers, so he would be the only one to sire offspring. We humans simply do things more radically than bonobos. Even though power will always be a greater obsession for males than for females, the will to power is not restricted to males. Yet it cannot be denied that in our own societies, women with political ambitions face special challenges. One is that while being attractive and good looking is great for men, think of John F. Kennedy or Justin Trudeau, it doesn't work out equally well for women. And this is related to how sexual competition interacts with an electorate that is half male and half female. Attractive women, especially those of childbearing age, are perceived as rivals by other women, which makes it hard for them to get their vote. When John McCain ran against Barack Obama in 2008, he selected a relatively young woman, Sarah Palin, as his running mate. Men in the media considered it a brilliant move, calling Palin hot. And I don't even know what that word is. But no one seemed to realize how much male enthusiasm might harm Palin's standing among women. Obama barely won the male vote, 49 to 48%, but he ran away with the female vote, 56 to 43%. Women begin to appeal as leaders only after they have become invisible to the male gaze by leaving their reproductive years behind. Modern female heads of state have all been postmenopausal, such as Golda Meir, Indira Gandhi, and Margaret Thatcher. The most powerful woman of our era, Angela Merkel of Germany, doesn't even like to draw attention to her gender, dressing as neutrally as possible. Merkel is a skilled and shrewd politician who is unimpressed by men. When Vladimir Putin received her at his Russian Dacha in 2007, he introduced his large pet Labrador to her, knowing full well that Merkel was scared of dogs. In the end, his tactic failed because she drew a distinction between Putin and his dog, noting to journalists, quote, "I understand why he has to do this, to prove he's a man. He's afraid of his own weakness," unquote. Putin's tactics showed how men always seek the upper hand through intimidation. That removing a male from power triggers the same reaction as yanking the security blanket away from a baby, proves how deeply ingrained these tendencies are. We tend to underestimate the emotions that organize our lives and institutions, but they are at the core of everything we do and are. The desire to control others is a driving force behind many social processes and imposes structure on primate societies. From Trump's and Clinton's quest to lead the nation to bonobo mothers who come to blows over their sons, the power motive is pervasive and plain to see. It has led to some of our highest achievements under inspiring leaders, but it also has a disturbing track record of violence, including the political assassinations to which our own species is no stranger. Emotions can be good, bad, and ugly. which is true for animals as it is for us. And that's the end of that chapter. And I finished on time. The next chapter is chapter 6, and it's called Emotional Intelligence on Fairness and Free Will. We have only 2 more chapters. They are long, however, but we should be done, I don't know by when, depends on how long it takes. Okay, thank you very much for sitting in and listening or snoozing or whatever happened. It's fine, doesn't matter. I'm glad you were here, and I hope you had a good nap.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Katie, I have a question and a favor to ask you. Would you be willing to write up a short story about how the chimes got here?
I will,
I
as much as I remember or knew in the first place. Yeah.
Okay. I'd like to put it in the next buzz.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
That
Okay.
that'll super. Thank you very much. I look forward to it. Okay, thank you. Thank you, everyone. See you next week. Bye-bye.
Testing 1 2 1 2. All right, so 1 2 1 2.
Hello.
Hey, Mimi, this is Julie. I was wondering if you wouldn't mind turning your television on and seeing if you can see me on TV and hear me. That's the main thing, is hear me. I was wondering if Thank you. Wouldn't mind turning your television on and seeing if you can see me on TV and hear me. Okay. That's the main thing, is hear me. Thank you. Okay. Yes. Yes. Uh, 994. Uh, 994. Okay. How's this? Testing 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8. There's a little bit of delay. Um, there's about, now I'm moving over. I see myself. 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 12 13 14 15 16. Delay. There's about, now I'm moving over. I see myself. 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10. Okay, put the phone down. Yeah, okay. I'll just sing a song or something. Somewhere over the rainbow. Hello, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R. Nothing. But no sound. All right, because I'm unmuted in the office, the YouTube channel. But no sound. Let's see here, the volume is up. I'm unmuted in the office. So I don't know why there's no sound. I think Genevieve had the same problem though. So I don't know why there's no sound. I think Genevieve had the same problem though. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, well, I'm still waiting to hear from them, so I just am double checking that it's not something I'm not doing. Because I thought, well, maybe, I was on mute and it can't be on mute or whatever, but nothing is muted. I'm double checking that it's not something I'm not doing. Because I thought, well, maybe, I was on mute and it can't be on mute or whatever, but nothing is muted. Okay. Okay, it won't be today, but thank you. Okay, take care, Mimi. Have a good day. What's left of it. Yes. Okay, it won't be today, but thank you. Okay, take care, Mimi. Have a good day. What's left of it. Yes. Yes, Leah will be up here in person and Tai Chi will be on Zoom. And Art will be in person. Helen will be here for sitting Zumba. So yeah, Tuesdays are always very busy. And Tai Chi will be on Zoom. Okay. And Art will be in person. Helen will be here for sitting Zumba. So okay. Tuesdays are always. All right. Thanks. Thanks, Mimi. Bye-bye. Yes. Okay. All right. Thanks. Thanks, Mimi.